We may only have half the crew this week, ladies and gentlemen, but we're still bringing you 100% of the fun, football, and chaos. Welcome back to another episode of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast here, live on YouTube, live on Twitter. It's Saturday morning. You guys already know. Best new football podcast out there. We're slow, although I think 20 plus episodes in now. I don't know how new we can call ourselves anymore, but I'm going to keep calling us new until I see fit, aka probably when the regular season starts. Like you all can see, there's only two of us this week, so probably going to be a bit of a shorter episode than usual, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be as much fun, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, as always, introing you all into this beautiful affair that we're going to have here on this Saturday morning. Iceman Jurg, and joining me, this man, he's a trooper, ladies and gentlemen. He was up early this morning. Yeah, he's already done a bunch of chores so far, and he's here to give you all the fun, the football, and he's got his rants at the end of the episode. Of course, I'm talking about Podfather Rick. Rick, how we doing?
I'm currently staring at my dog right now because she's looking out the door at like her reflection, but the way her body is positioned, like she's so close to the window that like her reflection is in the mirror, like touching nose to nose in a way. I don't really understand maybe she saw a bunny or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, no, I'm good. It's sad that it's just the two of us because obviously we miss Justin. Hope he's doing well in the Big D where he is, and because of Justin's absence, Sandoval has decided to take a week off and bask in his glory. Until his arch rival and arch nemesis returns, because he deemed the both of us as not worthy of asking him trivia questions. Which, I mean, he's an arrogant deer, but I guess he's got some points to make. So
I was going to say, to be very fair, I don't blame him.
I don't blame him either. I think it was hilarious last week when he got the question right and Justin flipped out. It was great.
Justin was so mad.
Oh my God.
He was so mad.
He called me out for collusion. I thought I was in like the 2020 presidential race for some reason. I was like, what the hell, man?
Oh my goodness. Justin will never he will not forgive what occurred last week. No. But even despite the unforgivable act from there, he did leave us a gift, because even though Justin is not with us this week, ladies and gentlemen, like Rick said, we don't have trivia, but we do still have some Would You Rather, and we always gotta have a game or two in here for us to have a little bit of fun. So let's get to it, Rick. This is actually kind of funny because the first topic we're going to talk about kind of relates to the positions that we're going to talk about here on the Would You Rather. We're going wide receivers this week, ladies and gentlemen, and let's start. Two interesting questions. I want to use the second question like as a second question, but I think it's more proper for it to be the first question. I already know my answer to this for the fun of it. Rick, what wide receiver would you rather have signed? This is interesting. Both these questions are going to tie in the Packers and the Chiefs here, Rick. Mm-hmm. What wide receiver would you have rather signed going into the season? Juju Smith-Schuster or Sammy Watkins?
Okay. So I think there's still a lot of life left in the tank of Juju for me to warrant signing him. I think Sammy Watkins' prime is kind of come and gone in my eyes. And I remember when we talked about the Packers back in our NFC North divisional preview, which ironically didn't have Justin in that episode either. I think the article that I read said that, the Packers wide receiving core was over the hill in some ways with Cobb and Watkins. And I think that's very fair. I mean, maybe Sammy Watkins has a renaissance and a resurgence season, but I think the opportunity is more there for Juju to blossom with Mahomes, like he blossomed with Ben Roethlisberger. And I think it's going to be a better opportunity for him to really reclaim that number one spot, because I feel like in Pittsburgh he was a number one by default at times, and there were other times where he just like wasn't the number one. I mean, Chase Claypool's not the number one either, but that's not a here nor there.
Is he the number three?
He's the number two, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So I'm gonna pick Juju Smith-Schuster on that one. I think for me.
Yeah, I think overall for a full season, I think Juju will prove to be more consistent. Like, people forget his first two seasons were electric for a wide receiver. Remember, I forget how long ago it was. I actually think it was that episode, funny enough, that Justin did miss. So all tiebacks to the last time Justin wasn't here. Right. I had the trivia question of receivers with the most yards through their first three seasons. If we only go first two seasons, I think Juju is kind of high up there on the list, because he was electric his first two seasons in the league alongside Antonio Brown, and he's fallen off since then. But I think it's worth bringing back up. Like, this dude at one point was a dynamic receiver, and I think I think a lot of reasons led to it not being the case in Pittsburgh. Number one, of course, yes, AB leaving definitely had its impact. You go from the number 2 to the number 1, it does bring a whole bunch of different things. But I think really the downfall, and I'm being nice saying it like that, the downfall of Ben Roethlisberger was another reason. Like, I think Antonio Brown, this is my thing where it's like I sometimes there's a reason elite wide receivers are useful because they can make an old quarterback look better than what they are. Case in point, when Odell was a Giant and when AB, before he lost his mind, like the two of them made Eli and Big Ben look a hell of a lot better than what they really were, I think. So I think no AB, Big Ben, and I don't know if it was just me personally. I think, well, of course, injuries happened to him. I think the offense kind of really changed after that, because even when Le'Veon was there, he was such a dynamic receiving weapon. And ever since he left, they've like whoever their running backs have been more so straightforward running backs. So I think a lot of that changed. And I think Juju for a full season will be the better option. But I will say this. For 1 week, and I specifically mean week 1, there is no greater weapon than week 1 Sammy Watkins.
Wow. Okay.
There is no better weapon than week 1 Sammy Watkins, ladies and gentlemen.
How do you justify that? How do you justify that opinion? Out of curiosity?
Meme culture.
Oh, okay, sure, great, gotcha.
Rick, we're all about the memes here. Come on, this show was created based off of memes.
I should have brought a little piece of bread on for breakfast this morning because then I would have said Rick roll just to get you there. So. But like,
how haven't you done that at this point? Actually,
because I just thought of it now, to be honest with you, and so. But the thing is too that my thought is that Juju had 97 catches in 2020. Like, if he caught 9 touchdowns, which is the most he's caught in his career in one season, so he's just. Excuse me for a minute. What do you? Are you really you're coming in now? Okay, fine, yes, fine. Yes. So she's not supposed to be up here anyways, but she's here now. So, but yeah. So he had a good 2020 season. Like, I think was it injuries last year? I think it was, but I think at the same point in time, I think it's just one of those things where it's just give him more of a rub. I mean, fine, meme culture is what it is. I'll give you week 1 Sammy Watkins. I don't understand it, but
I have a little bit of basis to back it up.
Okay.
I have a little bit of basis to back it up. So last season, week 1 of 2021, Sammy Watkins had 96 yards.
Okay.
Week 1 of 2020, he had 82 yards.
Okay.
Week 1 of 2019, he had 9 catches for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns. Rick, week 1 Sammy Watkins is real.
I mean, okay. Well, again, remind me who Green Bay is playing in week 1 this year. Just out of curiosity. No, remind me who they're playing. I don't know.
No, actually, I actually have to double check that too.
Actually, yeah, I'll look right now while you fire up the. They're playing Minnesota?
Yeah.
Ooh,
that's a young defensive secondary. I think Sammy Watkins might go off.
It's a dome too because it's in Minneapolis.
I think Sammy Watkins is getting 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think 2 receiving and 1 rushing and do a jet sweep for a 60-yard touchdown run. Yeah. Okay.
The legacy, the meme lives on. I'm all about it. I'm all for it. Cool. Yes, this worked out so much better than what I thought it would. This is the best.
I was going to say now that I asked you for like qualifications and qualifiers, you actually have like a lot of ammo to go along with this. So good for you on that one.
Oh, this is the best thing in the world. This is the best thing in the world. I just ran with it. I didn't even know he had 90+ yards last season.
Okay. I thought it was like like 2 catches, but one of them was like a front flip catch or whatever it was. I was like, oh, okay.
I'd still qualify that.
I mean, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. So question 2, well, technically question 1 probably should have been question 2, considering what now question 2 is, as I try to confuse the people as much as I can to throw them off the scent of everything. Which wide receiver would you rather trade for here, Rick? Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill? Now, of course, this connects everything together because the Green Bay Packers from the offseason, because the most influential wide receiver in NFL in the last decade in NFL history with Christian Kirk, the Packers and the Chiefs both had number 1 receivers, and they're like, hey, we want to get paid, and they're just like, we can't afford that. So they both decided to make trades. Devontae Adams traded from the Green Bay Packers to the Las Vegas Raiders, and Tyreek Hill traded from the Kansas City Chiefs to the Miami Dolphins. And both got handsomely paid, by the way. Very, very handsomely paid. More green than this shirt is. That's what they got. So which wide receiver, Rick, if you were either those teams, or let's say you want to take it from a Jets perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
which wide receiver, and we know the Jets were in the Tyreek Hill conversation, but let's just say blank slate, ignore that. Which receiver would you personally trade for, Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill?
Remind me again of what the deals were for both of them.
Got you in a moment here. So Devontae Adams' contract from the Las Vegas Raiders.
Well, the contract is one thing, but they're both traded, correct?
Yeah.
So what did Green Bay get back for Devontae, and what did Kansas City get back for? I know it's picks, but like, what was the
so
haul?
From memory, I think the Packers got. I think they got the first from Vegas this year because they had multiple first round picks in the draft. From memory, they. I'm getting personal information fed into me here. According to my sources, people are upset that there's no Sandoval here, Rick. So,
well,
the people miss Sandoval.
Again, there's some pretty significant reasonings for it. Like, if you don't get Justin, you don't get Sandoval. I mean, that's just kind of the way that the way it shakes down. So.
Very true. So from the Devontae Adams deal, the only thing the Raiders had to go was a 2022 first and a 2022 second.
Ooh.
Because remember, the Devontae Adams deal happened first. So then the Tyreek, that set the precedent before the Tyreek Hill deal in terms of that. And then Adams, he then subsequently had the 5-year, $141 million deal with the Vegas Raiders. Mm-hmm. So there was that. Okay. And now the Tyreek Hill deal, get to in a moment.
I think that was more picks, though, right? I think.
Yes, so it was definitely the first round pick that the Dolphins had this year, because again, that's why the Chiefs were such a threat. They had multiple first round picks. Here it is.
Right.
So in exchange, the Miami Dolphins sent a 2022 first, a 2022 second, 2 fourth round picks, and just to sweeten the deal a little bit here, Rick, a 2023 6th round pick. So that 6th round pick is clearly the biggest chip.
Of course.
Similar hauls, really. The Dolphins only gave up the 3 extra depth picks. Like, it was both deals were a first and a second for the guy.
I mean, the Dolphins gave up a lot more capital in that for a gadget receiver who is obviously a phenomenal gadget receiver, but he's a gadget receiver. He's not going to be your number one like big target down the field. He's going to be a guy who's going to be in the slot, who's going to make the cuts and be able to work it. I would trade for Devontae Adams only because, based upon what our conversations have been about, these teams and these receivers, I feel like he's going to have a much more of a breakout season because he's in a situation where it's going to benefit him better in this regard. I mean, if all things are being equal and I'm looking at different quarterbacks and all of that, I still pick him because I still want a big number one target. I still want a guy whose pedigree can say I can get 2,000 receiving yards in a season, which I had him as my bold prediction for the Raiders. Tyreek Hill for me is the problem with Tyreek Hill is that I feel like while they're both the best in their regard, like I think Devontae Adams is the best wide receiver, pure wide receiver in the game, and Tyreek Hill's the best slot receiver in the game. The number of slot receivers that are out there is just greater than pure talented wide receivers. I mean, we're looking at Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase now in that mold, but they're still young. I think there's a lot more guys who could be like the Tyreek Hill mold. Like I could say, 5 different names. I could say Andy Isabella out of Arizona. I could say, I could say other names that are there. I mean, Darius Slayton from the Giants is another guy who's in the same kind of mold and in the same kind of way. I mean, Cole Beasley was a similar wide receiver too for when he was with Dallas. So there's more talent in the slot receiver position that I think that if I missed out on Tyreek Hill, I'd still be okay with getting somebody else. But if I was trying to replace, if I didn't get Devontae Adams it's like I liken it to the Knicks in last offseason or a couple of seasons ago. They didn't get Kevin Durant, they didn't get Kyrie Irving, which by the way are now looking like amazing deals. But they told the Knicks fans, hey, don't worry, we have Julius Randle. And everyone was like, oh, okay. We missed out on LeBron and Bosh. We got Amari Stoudemire. Okay. And how many titles have we won? 0. So I like it in that regard. Devontae Adams for me is more of the can't miss pure talent. Where if I miss out on Tyreek Hill, there's other options that I can pick up that I think are similar or I can grow to be decent in a system with a Devontae Adams as my number one. So for me, it's Adams over Hill.
Right. I think so. Personally, I do agree. And part of that is because I'm a massive Devontae Adams fan. but I will play devil's advocate here in a moment. But I think another thing here, Rick, is like you bring up the point. When we have drafts now, we keep talking about, well, this person's going to be the next Tyreek Hill. This person's could be the next Tyreek Hill if such and such happens. When the Chiefs drafted Mecole Hardman because the future of Tyreek Hill was in doubt, they're like, if they develop him, he could be their new Tyreek Hill. They got Sky Moore. People are like, with that straight line speed, that he could take the Tyreek Hill role. Notice how when the Packers got Christian Watson, we didn't talk about him filling in for Devontae Adams.
There's no way to do it.
There is no way to do it.
Okay.
I think between the two of them, Devontae Adams is such, like, I think you said it best. And though I think Tyreek Hill is definitely more than just a regular slot receiver, I think his complete, like, he's got the toolkit. Like how we talk about baseball has 5-tool players. I think whatever the connection would be to football, like if you have a 5-tool receiver, Devontae Adams is a 5-tool receiver, and in all 5 of those tools, if you go league wide, he's either number 1 or number 2, and in most of those, he ain't number 2. Like Devontae Adams is the career ascension for him. Because remember, first 2 years in the league, we were making the Nelson Aguilar and Jalen Reagor jokes about him. He couldn't catch a football his first couple of years,
right?
But something happened from year 2 to year 3 where he started to get better. Now, in part, does Aaron Rodgers help that? Of course, but Devontae Adams worked and got better, and he has become what I think most people would say is the best wide receiver in the league right now. I certainly wouldn't disagree with it. And when you mention for your hot take for the Raiders that he could get 2,000 receiving yards, I think if there is a wide receiver, I think he's one of the 2 to 3 wide receivers in the game today where it's like 2,000 receiving yards. You know what? I could see it, especially in a 17-game season now, and especially with Derek Carr. Like, I think it might take a bit, but I think him and Derek Carr, like, just the off the field chemistry is there. I think it'll be a lot quicker on the field. Because there's more familiarity, I think they'll be able to have a bit more success on the field quicker than what Tyreek Hill is probably going to have with Tua. But now for just for the brief counterpoint, I think one thing that Tyreek Hill has over everybody, and including Devontae Adams, is that, man, he's the best, like, just pure speed wide receiver that this league has had ever since Steve Smith Sr. And I think, like, there was always the old "This is Sports Center" jokes. It's like, hey, Steve, is your speed incendiary or explosive or whatever it is? And then John Anderson comes back, and then he's right there. And it's like, I think incendiary. And, like, they had that whole bit. I think Tyreek Hill is the most incendiary, we could say, wide receiver that we have had since him, because you throw him a slant, he's taking it to the house. And it's because he's just straight up faster. Like, I'm talking about speed demon. Like, we talk about how with Lamar Jackson, his athleticism, how he's the fastest guy on a field of the fastest guys that play that sport. Tyreek Hill is that for the wide receivers. So I think that level of just pure, route running, plus that speed, plus that ability to break, like we always talk about the way that the Chiefs won that wild AFC divisional game last year. But and part of that was because that, like, Mahomes throws Hill the pass and he takes it to the house. And not every slot receiver can do that. A good chunk can, but not every slot receiver could have done that. So I think that is a baseline for the argument there with that. But at the end of the day, I'm with you. I do go with Devontae Adams again personally. Not my only. I don't know. I don't think it would be a hot take because I think they're both so good. I don't think that's a hot take. But if anyone considers that a hot take, not my first wide receiver hot take I've had this week. Just so people are aware. But I'm with you on that one. I think that Devontae Adams certainly is between the two of them. I would definitely trade for him in a heartbeat.
I think that I'll give you a hot take. I think speed's a little overrated. Because I mean, look at the fastest 40-yard dashes in NFL Combine history, and look at the guys who have achieved those marks and what they've been. In the top 10, the only guys that I can say that are like names that have stuck around and have done prevalently well in the league are Chris Johnson, CJ2K, and Champ Bailey. The fastest one was John Ross.
Right.
And what has John Ross done recently?
Nothing.
Exactly. And I mean, you want to talk about incendiary. I mean, there are wide receivers who are incendiary for other reasons, and I'll mention it, like, just briefly. Like, a guy who was a rookie last year ran a 4.27 in the 40-yard dash, and he was incendiary for whole other reasons. If you know catch what I drift.
Right.
So,
No, I drift or
no.
I do. No, like
Okay.
I don't disagree with you, but it's just I think Tyreek Hill, like I think even with him, I just think his speed's at a different level. Like
I
I
agree.
definitely get what you mean, but I think he is like he's not a John Ross. It's literally only a straight line. He's like the cuts that he can take. Like he can rip a defense apart. I think he can, and I think that's part of the reason why people are so high on the Dolphins going into this season is because they think Tyreek Hill is going to make that big of a difference. And
Hmm.
I I don't blame the mindset at all because I think Tyreek Hill can make a big difference. Will he is the question because now it's on Tua. But
Right.
yeah, no, I definitely get what you mean. I definitely get what you mean, and also everything clicks together. Yeah, that was a very specific wide receiver that you brought up there, Rick. That drift joke. Whew.
I was also going to say incendiary, but that's a whole other type of
Well, there
thing.
was you could say that both
126 miles an hour on the Arizona highway. Yeah.
oh man,
Yeah.
once again, like the previous discussion we had, Hollywood Brown was very lucky that he was not Henry Ruggs that night. Very lucky.
Exactly.
Oh
So,
man, oh man. But
terrible.
yeah,
Terrible.
that's the wide receiver portion, or that's the would you rather portion of the wide receiver discussions that we'll have this week, because we have plenty to talk about because a certain notorious wide receiver made some news this week. So we got a little bit of an NFL news dump here for all you good people. This is probably going to be a staple where we just go through things, especially come the season. Like it's going to be hard to review / preview a bunch of games on a weekly basis. So I think it's going to be more fun to
True.
just take little tidbits and pieces. We're going to talk a little bit about the preseason here in a moment, but Rick, I can't let this go. Antonio Brown is still being Antonio Brown, and Antonio Brown bought into meme culture. He officially bought into meme culture. So, as I'm sure any football fan is aware of, there was an image that was circulating this past week on social media, within the last couple of days, really, of a quote that Antonio Brown said. Here's the funny part: AB shared the quote, but not in his own words, not in his own tweet. He took the picture and he he shared it. He shared it on social. So AB actually didn't directly say it. The tweet, the line that it is, and let me just repeat it for the good people because oh god, this is meme worthy, ladies and gentlemen.
Just be very careful about some of the language in this tweet.
I will, don't worry.
Yeah.
Antonio Brown on his biggest regret. My biggest regret in my career does not involve calling my GM a certain word, or showing up to the Raiders camp late in a hot air balloon with frozen feet, or throwing rocks at the UPS driver. And it definitely doesn't involve taking my shirt off and doing a victory lap around Jet Stadium mid-game while throwing up deuces. My biggest regret is that I'll never get to see me, Antonio Brown, play a game live. Sure, I can watch the game afterwards, but I can't imagine what that was like for you all to see. Something like that. Like watching the Beatles or Jesus perform at Red Rocks. First off, how I wish that was true. How I wish he really said that. So for me, Rick, when I first saw this circulating, I forget what day when I saw it. I want to say it was Tuesday or Wednesday. It was the middle of the weekday. I saw it and I was like, so is the internet being fooled here? Because that is very similar. It's a little bit more expanded upon, but that's very similar to a quote that Kanye West had many years ago about himself, which he literally said, "My greatest pain in life is that I will never be able to see myself perform live." So Kanye West actually said that. And so with that knowledge, and also if you've watched enough Bill Burr, that you know that Kanye West said that and even more. When I saw that, I was like, okay, the internet, we took the Kanye West quote we made about Antonio Brown and we're running with it. And we think he said it because it's more than believable that he said it. But then a day or two later, I'm like, oh, wait, he actually said it? And then another day or two later, I'm like, oh, wait, no, he didn't say it because he shared the tweet. And it's like, okay, he didn't say it, but he fully buys into it because, of course, of course, why the hell would he not buy into it? He's Antonio Brown. He probably believes he actually did walk on water at some point compared to everything else. So the whole ordeal was just hilarious to me. Personally, seeing Antonio Brown share that was just like the thing where it's like, wow, like he fully bought into meme culture because from what I understand, he didn't say it. He didn't say it because it wasn't him. A meme account made it, and he's running with it. Which you're not buying yourself any public support there, but I think Antonio Brown and buying any public support, I think that ship set sailed a very long time ago, Rick. What was your reaction when you said that? Because we had the discussions in the chat about it, and like just on social media, just how did you react? Because like to me, it was very much a roller coaster of like, oh my god, what is this?
It reminds me of that great Mahatma Gandhi quote: "If I don't like something that's going on in my life, I change it, and I don't sit and complain about it for a year." Oh wait, did I say Gandhi? I mean Kim Kardashian. Regardless, the fact of the matter is, like that basically is what meme culture has become nowadays, right? Is that anybody can put any unlicensed quotes that are out on the internet and say anybody said them, and it's just like, the problem is that I don't think in journalism we knew how to decipher the truth from the lies or the falsehoods from the verbatim beatitudes in a way. When I first heard this, I wanted to know what hallucinogen Antonio Brown was on, and could I get some of that myself? Number one. But then to know that it was a Kanye West thing just even made me like even more like, why can't you be original? Like why? Like I get it. All the greatest words in the English language put together make up a quote said by somebody, probably. It's just kind of how it goes. Like I said, I put that quote together and told you it was Gandhi, and then took it back and said it was Kim Kardashian. Because if you really want to know what it was, go look it up, because it could have even been Putin who said it. You don't even know. That's the thing. Like that's the internet culture that we are now. And so this is probably I think one of the best troll jobs I think on the internet today. But I also kind of made me think a little bit, which I think was the whole purpose of it, was like, if I had a one-day opportunity to actually watch myself go through my own life, or like in truth,
Sure.
you have, we'll pull the curtain back. You have been at a basketball game that we've worked together, where you've heard me announce and you've seen me do stats and do music and all of that. I kind of want to see what it's like from your perspective to watch me do that, or it's like I kind of want to watch Justin be in Dallas right now and not be here, So I mean, it's one of those things where, and it's like you only see what you see out of your own eyes. You don't see the perspective on the opposite side. So I mean, in that respect, it creates an interesting little vibe. It just sucks that it was Antonio Brown who's the one that's now a part of it, because again, if this was a deep thinking philosopher, I would say this is a quote that I used to have a book that was called like Fundamentals of Philosophy. That was like Aristotle and Plato and Nietzsche and even like Milton and Locke and all these great philosophers. Antonio Brown's not going to be in that book. There's not going to be a version to it, Antonio Brown and Shailene Woodley and Kim Kardashian. It just ain't going to fly like that. If it is, it's going to be an ebook read by Dame Judi Dench of all people. So it's like that's where it is now. That's where it is now.
The references are amazing.
I'm not saying she's a gold digger. Judi Dench reading Kanye West's Gold Digger. No one man should have all that power.
Oh man.
Yeah. Essentially, that's basically how I feel about it.
What's the funnier troll part? That a meme, I don't know if it was a meme page or just a person himself, that someone tricked the entirety of the internet that Antonio Brown, to make people think Antonio Brown said that, or the fact that Antonio Brown rides with it. It's like, oh yeah, no, I fully believe this. Like, what's a better troll job?
So I think the creativity behind it is probably a better troll job, because Antonio Brown rolling with it is just like, you knew that was going to happen.
Right.
Like you just knew that he was going to like just go with the flow and be like, yeah, absolutely. Like I did that. I wanted to see myself run shirtless out of MetLife Stadium with the deuces up. Like, come on, no. The comparison to watching Jesus perform at Red Rocks though is actually pretty entertaining if you think about it. Yeah, like why? Like, first of all, Red Rocks is a very spiritual environment. I get that, but it's also a big country music, avenue. So why Jesus? Why wouldn't you go with Dolly Parton in her prime or Chesney? Or Zach Brown Band. Jesus? I can't wait for Jesus' new country music single to come out, It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Oh, man. No. See, now you got me thinking of, like, if I actually had to watch a day in my own life. First off, what day would I want to watch just for the hell of it?
Oh, yeah. That's the good question.
Yeah.
Because there are a ton of days you could pick, but like, what's the most important thing out of all of it, honestly?
Right. I would, well, for myself, we know what your default answer should be, Rick. Since you're married, we know the answer would be you'd love to watch your marriage in real time.
Honestly, you know what? As much of a default answer as that is, I'm actually gonna give you a different answer though.
Mm-hmm.
But it has something to do with it. I actually want to watch the day that I proposed in real time. Well, no, because like from me setting this thing up and having 15 months to prepare for it and getting the ring and getting everything, I was still pretty freaking nervous that day. And I enlisted my sister in helping me with the proposal and my wife's best friend. And my sister, where I was proposing was this mini golf course near where I used to live. My sister got there about an hour before. She was like, "I'm so nervous. Like, I'm here an hour before. I'm hanging out in the car. Like, when are you getting here?" And I'm literally, I was just like thinking in my head, I'm like, I want to watch like my steely cool confidence in dropping down to a knee and proposing, but B, also be like, how was I the morning of? Was I nervous? Was I was I fumbling over? Like, did I mess up any words? Did I, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean, the weddings would be great, but you also have videos of the weddings that you can watch too. So it's just, it's, I don't know. That's just my thing.
That's awesome. That's really sweet.
Yeah, again, really sweet. I'd love to also watch Sienna's perspective for a day to see, how everything goes,
That would be funny.
That'd be great.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I don't have a day important enough to match that, so I can't think of one.
Well, I would think for you, because of where you currently work, I think that the day you'd like to kind of watch back might be the day you interviewed at your current workplace.
Right. Well, there were 3 interviews.
okay. Well, one of them, any one of them,
probably the last one.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like, like to kind of get like the vibe of like how you felt walking into the place, and or had the confidence you might have had and all that sort of stuff.
That would definitely be part of it.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason why I remember one detail I definitely remember before each interview I had. So all 3 of my interviews I actually had before the job were via Zoom. So I don't have to go here, which saved a lot of trips. But just literally like an hour before each interview started, I was getting ready. I put on my shirt, I put on a nice button-up shirt, gel my hair back, get the tie ready, the blazer, because you wore shorts because you know how it goes. We're business on top, party on the bottom.
Of course, absolutely.
The first one I actually did wear like dress pants sitting though, because I was like, if they ask me to stand up, I am going to be ready. But they didn't, so I'm like, I'll take my chances. But like, see, I would love to just see like me going through all that. Like, that would be interesting to see like what level of confidence that I have going into this thing. Like, I did get some help like during the interview process, but like I would just like to see in real time like me answer all the questions. I'm like, how did I look doing this? Because that's definitely one thing. If I also had to think of one other thing, it's not like a critical moment, but I would love to just see me on my commencement day, finally being done with school. Like, that's like a level of that's like a level of release that's like you don't get, where it's like I would just love to see like just the smile on my face throughout that entire day, because it was commencement, it was graduating from a school that I've had plenty of opinions on. But also the family dinner after was nice, being around with family. And one of my uncles actually visited on my commencement day as well. He was there for a bit. Like, he was visiting the whole family, and he was there for my commencement day. And then to finish it off, there was the NBA Finals game that night between the Raptors and the Warriors. I want to say it was I think it was game 1. If not game 1, then game 2. But yeah, it was like it was just a fun thing. And I think that would probably be the next day that I would want to relive, because just being done with school. That's
oh my god,
that's
so good.
That's a feeling.
I will say too, to wrap this whole segment up, as she comes back into the frame, I will say too that I think the Red Rocks Twitter account also did a really nice job of kind of helping out with this, because they once the AB meme tweet went out, they responded and replied that Jesus set was blank, like waiting for people to like answer, like, how everyone thought it was. And somebody commented like, I can't believe that he was here for one night only. It was amazing. So yeah,
that's awesome.
so,
That's awesome.
yeah.
When everyone plays their part in social media, it can be a beautiful thing.
Oh yeah, that's the best part for sure.
And speaking of beautiful things, Rick, speaking of magical moments, football is officially back. We had week 1 of the preseason. We had a good chunk of games so far. I think we still have a little bit more, but we don't care about the rest of the games. We care about what's happened so far. So a couple things, and of course, with you and Justin being Jets fans, there is some Jets news that we have to announce from recently. But before that, let's just talk about notable things that happened in the preseason, Rick. Trey Lance played really good, so he's making a boy look really good about that San Francisco 49ers standings prediction there. But Trey Lance actually looked pretty good for the preseason game. And really, I think, Rick, and this is just part of the field that I get, because I don't know why this offseason and preseason just feels different. And maybe it is because it's just the 3 preseason games. We're going to see a lot of the important players play a good chunk of time here because they need to get ready for this next season. And seeing Trey Lance early, I think that was you saw some really good signs there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I look at Trey Lance in that role, and I think that he did extraordinarily well in that preseason game. I think he was a lot better, I think, than Jordan Love. I mean, again, he only threw 5 passes, but at the same time, he connected on 4 of them, and he led a really nice drive down the field, 92 yards, which was impressive, to say the least. I look at Desmond Ridder as well from Atlanta in that game against Detroit. I think Desmond Ridder had a really good outing. I mean, he didn't connect on a lot of passes. He was 10 for 22, but he didn't make any mistakes. He wasn't sacked. He threw 2 touchdowns. He also ran 6 times for 59 yards. So he looked like a really good dual threat as well. If I had to say one other guy before the obvious guy that I'm going to mention, you know what? We gave him a lot of flack and we made fun, but let's give Bailey Zappi some love. I mean, he was 19 of 32 against the Giants for 205 yards. Like that, Mac Jones wasn't playing in that game for the Patriots, and we kind of knew that was going to be the case. But you know what? Bailey Zappi did what he needed to do to kind of make his case. I like Bailey Zappi. I hope he does well.
Right.
Now let's get to Zach Wilson.
Actually, I was just going to mention one other name before you get going with Zach Wilson here, Rick. Just on the rookie quarterbacks, Malik Willis, 6 for 11, 107 yards, and then also 38 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Not bad.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I thought it was a good outing for a good portion of the rookie quarterbacks that were out there. I think, I think that was a solid effort by all those guys out there, and I'm curious to see, later on. I think today we might have Matt Corral, Carolina, Washington. We could have Matt Corral versus Sam Howell. That could be interesting. So we'll see Kenny Pickett probably tonight against Seattle. That could be fun. So that there's definitely things that are positives. And then we get to Zach Wilson. And I didn't honestly know, because the Jets were on preseason. I wasn't really watching them. The Mets were on Apple TV. I wasn't really watching them, because I don't have Apple TV. So I was, Yankees were on, fine, whatever, watching them. And then I read your tweet about what happened to Zach Wilson. I'm like, what happened to Zach Wilson? So I go look, and it's one of those things where it's like you're hoping that it's not as bad as it could be. He's going to have an MRI today. There was some doctor on Twitter that came out and said, "Oh, it looks like he tore his ACL." And I'm like, "But you're watching the game on TV. You don't know. So stop it with your phony medical opinions, Twitter doctors." What I will say though is that it gave me a look at how the Jets quarterback room could be if Zach Wilson isn't available. Mike White wasn't bad. I mean, 10 for 20, 98 yards. We know what Mike White can do. I mean, we saw him in that Cincinnati game, which was amazing. I'm going to give Chris Streveler some love, though. My man, Chris Streveler, undrafted out of University of South Dakota, go Yotes. He won the Grey Cup for Winnipeg. It had one of the greatest pictures of all time. It's on his Wikipedia page where the man is shirtless in a cowboy hat with sunglasses and a mink coat because it's Winnipeg, of all places. 6 for 9, 62 yards, 2 touchdowns, also ran for 31 yards. Put this kid on the roster. Make him the QB2. Get rid of Joe Flacco. Make Chris Streveler the QB2 if there's no Wilson. Make him exact. That's the picture right there. That is the greatest picture I've ever seen. And yeah, keep him on the roster. If Zach Wilson's hurt, if it's a major thing, keep him on the roster. Or you know what? Release Flacco. You don't need him. He's an albatross. Like, you have Mike White, who proved to be a good backup, and Streveler had some really nice touches yesterday for the Eagles. And you know what? He threw a pass to Jeremy Ruckert for a touchdown. Like, there's your tight end that you drafted. Like, excellent job there. Like, he caught the touchdown. He did better than Cole Kmet. He caught a touchdown pass. That's all I'm saying. So, there are positives. Again, do I hope that Zach Wilson's injury isn't serious? Of course. You feel bad for the kid. This is why, many people, my wife included, hate preseason football because, of the injury factors, which is fair. But, I also want to give one last shout out for the Jets to Zonovan Knight. When the Eagles took the lead late in the fourth quarter, I thought it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that the Jets had just blown another game. Zonovan Knight took the ensuing kickoff 52 yards. He took it out from 5 yards deep in the end zone and put the Jets at their own 47 on the final drive of the game. If I can get that on a consistent basis and at least like one big return per game from a guy like Zonovan Knight, I will take that. Because special teams can flip the field, and you know this from being a big special teams fan. It can flip the field like that. So I loved that about Zonovan Knight. And, it reminded me of kind of Leon Washington back in the day where he was, the gadget guy who could run, but who could also change the game in that respect. So I think for me, positives on the Jets, minus the negatives, positives on the Jets all around.
Right. And I'm with you and Justin. In all seriousness, aside from the fact that I've become a big Zach Wilson fan for off the field reasons, you do hope the kid is healthy enough, because all these moves were made to get the best possible situation to see him play the next 2 seasons and see what you have in him. And if you get robbed of one of those seasons, that sucks, because it lessens the amount of time you have to evaluate him properly. And part of the reason why some players just end up failing at the end of the day is because you don't get enough time to evaluate them. And they also just never they don't get to play. Case in point, another Jets player who we know for sure is done for the season is Mekhi Becton. And that's a guy. Yeah. We were speaking about it, Rick, in the chat, and I think we need to have a different term for guys who are outdone because of injuries and not just call them busts. Because when Mekhi Becton's on the field, he's a very good tackle. But the problem is that he needs to be on the field. And I think there needs to be a little bit of a different term made for guys who played well when they got to play, but they just didn't get to play enough. I think there needs to be a little bit, because this isn't a Jamarcus Russell situation where he just didn't learn, didn't get better. This isn't one of those. I know different position, of course, but I think for Mekhi Becton, I don't think bust is a proper term for him. I think disappointment, maybe, just because of all the injuries. But I think there needs to be a little bit of a case, because is Andrew Luck a bust, or is it because Ryan Grigson literally sent him to die for several years because he gave him essentially you and me as part of the offensive line?
Well, I mean, I can agree with you in that respect, but my counter argument to that is that you've been playing football for how many years? You've had this big contract. You were a top 15 pick for a reason, and to not have the production level that you might think okay, maybe bust is a bad term. He's a football player in that regard, because you could have guys who were top 8 picks who had good careers, but they never were the potential that you saw them potentially could have reached, So maybe in that regard, I can say we can definitely label another term. But look, you're not going to take this away from me. Louisville's now on my no-fly list, along with USC and Alabama. I'm sorry. Look, Calvin Pryor was a disaster because he came right out of the Road Warriors, Rod He Hate Me Smart era of football, where it was all about clanging and banging, to use the Rock's terms. And now Mekhi Becton, look, I mean, maybe he's good, but she's on the table right now. Sienna, get off the table. You're not even supposed to be up here anyways initially. I was on just see her climbing up. I'm just like, really? What are you doing? You're not taking that away from me. I already lost to Ohio State. Don't make me lose another team. I'm putting Louisville in.
I was going to say Ohio State as of now is outside.
Well, again, so technically speaking, obviously Vernon Golston and Darren Lee were terrible. They were busts. Nick Mangold was excellent. I liken it to this. Mike Nugent was their first pick in that draft. They had a first-round pick. They flipped it for the second-round pick. They took Nugent, so technically that kind of makes it okay. And he was a good kicker. So Ohio State's even if I want to play that game. So Garrett Wilson's like the tipping scale. Either they go back to being a terrible team or
so Garrett Wilson is going to be the decider here on if Ohio State gets firmly back in that list.
For now. I mean, look, Ohio State's also got the most players that the Jets have drafted in the last 20 years in the first round. I mean, and granted, like you could say, oh, but USC, Elijah Vera Tucker, yeah, but they still had Sam Darnold and Mark Sanchez.
And Leonard Williams. Did nothing as a Jet. Sorry, Rick. He's part of it.
Yes, I know he's part of it. I know he is.
Real quick for the people in case there's anyone that doesn't know what we're talking about. Rick has a personal list, like the list of Jericho. This is the list of Rick that schools he does not want the Jets to consider drafting a player from. And on that list, firmly, Alabama, USC, newly minted Louisville, outside looking in right now, Ohio State.
They were there for a bit, but on further review, and Mike Carey and I had a discussion on further review, and Ed Hockley was there as well. We decided that they're on the border for right now. They're okay. If Garrett Wilson does well, then they'll be fine. But if he does terribly, then they're back into the fold with Southern California and Alabama and now Louisville.
And just so since we said all the other schools, can you let the people know the Jets players from Alabama that have failed you have been?
D. Milner.
That in and of itself is enough.
Exactly. Because fine. Quinnen Williams too is kind of teetering, but Quinnen Williams could win 3 All-Pros, and it doesn't take away the stink of D. Milner from this Jets franchise. I'm sorry, it doesn't. So
that's how bad it was. He was. I remember you and Justin brought him up. He was cut before the proper end of his rookie contract. The Jets paid this man to go away. And the wild thing is, Rick, most guys get second chances. He hasn't been. I don't even think he's even been in a preseason game ever since the Jets cut him. It was that bad. And everyone gets second chances in the league.
Not D. Milner.
Not D. Milner.
Not D. Milner.
D. Milner, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Oh, thank God. Well, because you know what would have happened. He would have been picked up by somebody and he would have become a star, and then it would have been even worse for me. So,
right. So maybe the best case scenario for you. Other notable preseason events throughout the course. The Baltimore Ravens, because I mentioned Malik Willis earlier, the Baltimore Ravens now have won 21 straight preseason games.
That's amazing.
Right? That
is absolutely amazing to me. They're so good at winning games that mean absolutely nothing.
It's absolutely outstanding to say the very least.
Yeah. And Justin Tucker scored more points than the Titans last night total. He had 3 field goals and 2 extra points. That's 11 points. Titans only scored 10.
That's my kicker right there.
And those were our Titans, disappointing us in every which way possible.
Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, we are hopeful of the downfall of the Tennessee Titans this season.
Oh, it's happening.
It's
happening.
We're very hopeful. Now, preseason, of course, absolutely means nothing to the endeavor, but still, we can pretend.
Right.
You already mentioned it, Rick, but it'll be interesting with the preseason games. You have the other rookie quarterbacks that could end up getting some time here. Carson Wentz also, I'm sure he's going to get plenty of time. Carson and Baker Mayfield actually getting time today, more likely than not, in that Panthers and Commanders game. Mm-hmm. Wow, a former number 1 overall pick and a former number 2 overall pick. Not in the same draft, mind you, but former number 1 and 2 duking it out in a preseason game. Whose career is going to be revived? That's
unbelievable.
That's a story to say the least. You have Rams Chargers in the preseason. I think they
meet on New Year's Day. That's the game that I said the Chargers were going to lose. They wouldn't be perfect. So they actually have a preview of it tonight, which I thought they tried to avoid that in the preseason, like playing teams that you would be playing in the regular season as well. I thought they tried to avoid that, but
true. But consider this, Rick, that LA media money though.
Oh well, yeah.
Because even if it's a preseason game, you can hike up those sponsorship dollars for a Los Angeles versus Los Angeles matchup.
Because no one's going to go see the Dodgers or the Angels anymore. The Dodgers are good, but they're too good. Like, you just know you're going to get a win every time. The Angels are awful.
Yeah. So, it's also baseball. So
Fair.
That's boring been too hot.
And the Dodgers are in Kansas City. Of all the places to be, they're in Kansas City for baseball. Like,
perfect timing.
Yeah, it's great.
Perfect timing for these teams. Also worth noting, the Miami Dolphins and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Brady is most likely not going to play the entirety of the preseason because I saw it a couple days ago. He stepped away for personal reasons, not fully from the team, but like I think we can guarantee he's not going to play in the preseason.
Look, and one thing that I will say, I know we're normally heartless towards Tom Brady, but we hope that whatever it is, he's able to go through it and be fine, and whatever the issues are, it's okay, because you never wish ill will on a human being unless it's Ryan Tannehill.
Right. Hey, I just want the Titans to lose. But we have our fun with Brady, of course, you guys being Jets fan, and I'm just here for the ride of it. And we love making fun of the TB12 and the avocado ice cream and all that. But at the same time, we hope whatever it is, it's nothing but the best. And if it sadly is like a bad thing happening, then we hope all is best for him and everyone close to him. So
exactly.
Thoughts to Tom Brady. You also have Colts and Bills in the preseason. I don't think that game is. I can't think of a reason to watch that game. Maybe Matt Ryan debuting, I guess.
Maybe, possibly.
See a little bit of Matt Ryan there. You have Saints and Texans.
There's no reason to watch that game.
How dare you not want to see Ian Book versus Davis Mills?
It's Ian Book versus Jeff Driscoll. Let's be honest here. Come on now.
True. Yeah. True. Chiefs versus Bears. Justin Fields is definitely going to get a good chunk of time in that one, I would assume. Yeah, and
maybe.
I think that's just about the entirety of the remaining preseason games. I mean, there's Broncos Cowboys, but let's be real here. It's Broncos Cowboys. Although we do have the Sunday night game.
Go ahead.
We do have the Sunday night game. Vikings Raiders. You don't want to see Kellen Mond sling the football?
Not really.
No,
not really.
Fair enough.
Sean Mannion maybe a little bit more, but no, not really.
Fair enough.
Kellen Mond.
Who's the Raiders' backup quarterback, actually, now that I think about it?
Oh, boy.
It's not Mariota anymore.
Well, no, it's not Mariota anymore. We know that for a fact. Nick Mullins or Jared Stidham?
Ooh. Think we might see Chase Gabbers? Yeah, Garbers.
Oh, yeah. The next coming of Jared Goff, Chase Garbers.
Yes.
The pride of Corona Del Mar.
I don't know how you know these random locations. So that's the majority of the preseason. The last thing of the preseason we're going to bring up here, Rick, and I'll toss it to you first. The Jaguars-Cleveland Browns game is a sight to behold, to say the very least. It was the debut because we still don't know what's going to happen, so he's going to be suspended for however many games in the regular season because the NFL is still deciding things on him. Deshaun Watson made his return to football, his preseason debut for the Cleveland Browns against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was an interesting game. I actually saw there was I'm sure you probably saw it. I forget if it was on Instagram or Twitter. I want to say I saw it first on Instagram, but there was a video from the crowd and fans were, chanting certain terms to Deshaun Watson, mainly "you sick F, you sick F." So that was very interesting, to say the very least. There, Watson didn't play well, to say the very least, in that game. He finished 1 of 5 for 7 yards, outplayed by both Joshua Dobbs and Josh Rosen. So let's go, Dobbs and Rosen. You got that. On the other side of things, and you mentioned this, Travis Etienne played a role in that game. It wasn't the strongest game for him, but the fact that he actually got to play, he did have a catch out the backfield for 10 yards, and he also had 9 carries for 23 yards in that one. And Trevor Lawrence had a touchdown and 0 interceptions for himself. So, a very sloppy game, you could say, but we know the reason why it's being brought up, Rick.
Because of Jerome Ford.
Of course. Deshaun Watson playing in the preseason, of course, suspensions have nothing to do with the regular season. We know how this stuff works, so we knew the Browns were going to use the preseason to get him back in the fold of things. Did you have any thoughts or reactions to any of this stuff, or? I
mean, again, in my estimation, I'm ignoring Deshaun Watson at this point because I think it's a circus. So I'll highlight the rest of the Browns team that played. And I mentioned Jerome Ford for a reason. He ran for 57 yards in a score and caught 4 passes for a score and 45 yards. That's a guy who's a running back who's trying to make it with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt also on that team. So I think that's if you want to talk about Deshaun Watson, fine. but I'd rather highlight the guys that are trying to have a spot on the team. I'd rather try to highlight the guys that, I think are going to be more important in that regard. And so for me, that also, speaks to the fact that Corey Bojorquez looked really good last night as the punter for the Browns. I mean, longest punt was 63 yards, average of 59 yards. He's going to change the game for them, basically. And on the Jacksonville side, look, it wasn't the game that ETN I think we were expecting from him. But again, at the same time, the guy made it through a game without getting hurt, which is great. He played with Trevor Lawrence, which is great. Trevor Lawrence looked really good last night, I think. So that's good. There's really not much else I can say on that end. Again.
You already brought up punter. Cade York, the kicker.
Yes.
He was good. One for one on his field goal and 3 for 3 on extra points. So
give me Cleveland special teams unit for my fantasy draft.
They have a young special teams unit.
I like them
at the very least.
I like them.
Jacksonville special teams unit, because yes, like we will mention everything else aside from he who shall not be named until we have to speak of him again because of the incoming suspension.
Right.
Which apparently, allegedly, I don't know how real this was because I just saw it floating out there, but allegedly, Watson is willing to accept, he has to accept whatever suspension they get, but he's willing to accept a longer suspension if it's not season long or something like that. I don't know.
Of course.
I saw something along the lines. I know I shared it to you guys, but it's essentially he's willing to pay a fine and also be suspended a few more games as long as it's not the full season. So
ridiculous.
at this point, we don't give a damn what you think, Deshaun Watson. So cool. I guess. No. I don't know. We don't care. I wish I could bring up the Stephen A. meme. We don't care. We really don't care about you right now.
Right. Exactly.
But for the Jacksonville Jaguars punting unit, because you best believe I'm bringing up punting and kicking for the Jags as well. Logan Cook, 3 punts, 133 yards, long of 48, 1 inside the 20. So
that's pretty good. Yeah,
pretty good. The veteran Ryan Santoso, 1 for 1 on his field goal yesterday. He is competing with another veteran, and Elliott Fry, who was also 1 for 1, the former Cincinnati Bengals kicker, who he played 1 game, had 1 field goal for the Bengals last year before Evan McPherson was up east. But Fry was also 1 for 1 on extra points. So
there you go.
Lead to Fry right now.
The lead. Yeah.
You have a good old kicking battle in Jacksonville. And
absolutely.
Not the Urban Meyer type of kicking battle, the actual proper football kicking battle.
I knew you were going to make that. I knew you were going to bring that up. That's unfortunate.
Honestly, that was off the dome. I just thought of that. I'm like, oh wait, Urban Meyer kicked a kicker last year. Let's work that in here. Kind of like you said earlier, Rick, the NFL preseason in and of itself is its own treasure chest of good and bad. So we'll see. There's a really, it's going to be interesting. We don't really have too much to talk about per se when it comes to the preseason because it's preseason. But if anything noteworthy happens, such as the young quarterback, such as players like you mentioned with Ford, the Browns do need a third running back. So I hope the best for him. Hopefully he does make the roster for him. Little pieces like that. If a nice story catches our eye, we always love those good inspirational stories of a guy he's been cut 3 times and he's killing it in the preseason. We hope he makes someone's roster. If something like that pops up, we're going to bring it up because we want all the feel good when it comes to the football.
Right. And the last one for me, Arizona, Cincinnati. I mean, you talk about Evan McPherson. The guy was 3 for 3. He made a 58-yard field goal yesterday in camp. The thing that I liked, though, about Arizona was that they didn't turn the ball over on offense. They had 3 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns, which is interesting when you consider Kyler Murray did not play at all. He actually was calling the plays from the sideline as the offensive coordinator for the game. So
future career
or current career, go do that now and let Trace McSorley be the quarterback, please. That'd be great. Thanks.
So you have that happening out of Arizona. But speaking of Arizona and maybe more teams here, let's have a little bit of talk of contenders here, Rick. Who's going to be the preseason champion? No, in all seriousness. So this is actually a very quick thing we're going to do here. Kind of birthed out of a discussion I had on a podcast earlier in the week. But so we know the preseason favorites here, Rick. And of course, as people are probably, if you've sat through this episode long enough, you realize that we are not doing our playoff predictions this week because Justin's not here. And all 3 of us got to be together to do the playoff predictions.
Right.
So we're going to wait until Justin's back and all 3 of us are here. I'm assuming that's next week, but we'll wait and see. But before we end up doing that, I had a little bit of fun so we could still talk some football stuff here. So, Rick, we know the preseason favorites in both conferences. We know a lot of people are favoring the Rams very much so to make it back to the Super Bowl, and as they should because they're the defending Super Bowl champs and look very good for all intents and purposes down in the NFC. And in the AFC, from everything that I'm seeing, the Bills are the current favorite to a lot of people, considering there is some questions about the AFC West, the AFC North, the Bengals versus Ravens, which team would you take? And well, the AFC South exists, but that's really about it. So the Bills are, to many people, and myself included, like the favorite to make it out the AFC. So let's take them as the top 2 teams in each conference, right? They are number 1 in each one. Let's establish that.
Yeah.
What teams can best challenge them for those thrones, whether it be the top seed in the conference or whether it become playoff time? Who's the most dangerous team for them to potentially face come playoff time? Let's start in the AFC here, Rick. When it comes to the Buffalo Bills, we know their story. They've made the shootout of an AFC divisional game last year, which was, to a lot of people, the de facto AFC championship game until the Cincinnati Bengals completely switched that. And then the year before, they made it to the AFC championship game, which again, they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. So Kansas City's kind of been like a demon for them, and they might still be that. But the Buffalo Bills are going to be the prohibitive favorite to many. What team that we are projecting to make the playoffs here in the AFC do you think poses the best challenge? If you want to bring up a second team as well, you don't have to just leave it to one. But like, give me your top team or 2 that you think will be the best contender to challenging the Bills' claim for being the top team in the AFC this year.
Well, I mean, I have the Chargers at 16-1, so that kind of answers that question in a sense. But I'll say this: the reality is, whoever wins the AFC West for me is the best possible threat, because that will be a team that has come out of the fire of that division to absolutely deserve to win, and they will be prime and ready to take on Buffalo in that regard. Whether it's the Chargers, the Raiders, the Broncos, or even if it's Kansas City again, if they somehow make it through. I think that you're looking at the AFC West as the division that's going to be that dethroner. So for me, personally, based upon my records and standings, it's the Chargers. I just think that Justin Herbert's offense is full of firepower. The defense has really gotten a lot better. They added J.C. Jackson as well to that defense, and of course, you still have Joey Bosa there. So I think it's or is it Nick Bosa, one of the Bosa twins, whichever one it is. Bosa. Anyways, so I think the Chargers they're a team that is young and hungry and willing to kind of get aggressive. And I think that's why I have them where I have them. But I guess any team in the AFC West, I think, is going to be the class to challenge. I don't see any team from the South or the North really standing that much of a test. I think the Bengals got lucky last year because I think Buffalo, if it was Buffalo-Cincinnati, it'd be a whole different story. Because, again, it would also be played in Buffalo, which I think would be a lot worse for Cincinnati because Bills Mafia is just a nightmare. But I think you're looking at that division in the West, and you're seeing all 4 teams that could win 10 or more games, and you're thinking somebody from there has to challenge Buffalo.
Right. I was going to say this: if the Chiefs somehow make it past this division as the top team, that I think we need to be definitely afraid of them if they make it. With all the questions we have, if they win the AFC West, I think we need to be scared of them very much.
Yeah,
I definitely don't blame you. I think the Chargers, just on paper, being a team that can match Buffalo, I think a big thing in order to match Buffalo is to be able to match up with them offensively. And I think offensively, the Chargers are more than able to do that. And I think defense is also a big part of the equation there. I think defensively, because of the additions they made, because they got Bosa and Mack, because they have J.C. Jackson, if he's finally healthy, hopefully, a Derwin James, who is, when healthy, top 3 safety in the league.
Yeah,
If that defense is also well put together, like they can give Buffalo problems for sure. Because Buffalo, like the thing with the Buffalo Bills, and while there are a lot of people's favorites, like going into the season, they've shown inconsistency in the past. Even last season, and Josh Allen, we know he's supremely talented, but he has, even with him getting as much better as he has, he's still tended to have some weird games here and there, and he's shown himself off. Now, come the playoffs, kid performs. Can't doubt that at all. But at the same time, I think that like there is more than I think it's a more than realistic shot that a team can challenge the Bills properly. And I want to give a little bit of credit to the other teams and why I think there are a couple more teams that could potentially pose a threat, because even though they've gotten better at it, I still think the rushing attack is a weakness for the Buffalo Bills. And not just offensively for them. I think defensively, I think if you are able to carve up that defense, I think it gives you a chance. And that's why part of me thinks that, and remember, this was just a couple of years ago with Phillip Rivers as the quarterback and a rookie Jonathan Taylor. When the Colts faced the Bills in the playoffs, they were one throw away from winning that game. So they're not my top contender, but I think the Colts in the playoffs one game against the Bills, I think they actually would have a bit of a shot, because I don't think Buffalo's defense can maintain Jonathan Taylor. And that's also a thing where it's like, as much as I want the downfall of the Tennessee Titans to happen, if they can actually make it to the playoffs, like a healthy Derrick Henry, and this is the big thing, he has to be healthy, but Derrick Henry has just destroyed the Buffalo Bills defense. Like the last 2 or 3 matchups he's faced them, like he just runs all over them. So it's clear that the rushing attack, and specifically AFC South running backs, because I think Jonathan Taylor had that 4 touchdown game against the Bills last season. Like there's something about the running game that's still a bit of a weakness that we have to wait and see, obviously. But the rushing defense is a bit of a threat. That's why part of me also thinks that in the conversation, to an extent, it could be the Baltimore Ravens. Because remember on that AFC Championship run, they did face the Ravens. Lamar Jackson got knocked out towards the end of that game. They didn't face a fully healthy Ravens team at the very end of the game. So I think both of those teams could potentially make a threat because of the rushing attack. Will they be able to then go throw for throws? The big question, of course, because then you're relying on Matt Ryan and Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen. That's a big thing. And not for me, Clive, personally. I will say, I want to give the Bengals a little bit of credit here. Because on the idea of matching the Bills offensively, I think on paper, next to the Chargers right now, I think the Bengals are the team that can match the Bills offensively. Defense now, I think, is where you have to ask questions. But I think going throw for throw, I think the Bengals can do it. Because it's Joe Burrow versus Josh Allen. Now, I'll agree. I'll give that battle to Josh, of course. But then the weapons. So you got Jamar Chase versus Stephon Diggs. And then you have the number 2 receiver on the Bengals. It's T. Higgins versus Gabriel Davis.
Probably, yeah.
I'm taking T. Higgins there. And then the number 3 is Tyler Boyd versus
Jameson Crowder, maybe.
And I'm taking Tyler Boyd. So okay. I think the depth. Think the receiving weapons there.
But
you give it to the Bengals.
But look at the tight end battle.
Dawson Knox.
But they just lost Uzama to the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you say, okay, Dawson Knox, O.J. Howard's there too. So,
well, he's got to be healthy. You don't
true. Comparing the weapon set, I understand that. I just think, Buffalo's got more depth, whereas Cincinnati has more flash in their top positions, I think, for me.
I mean, is it depth when the number 1 through 3 on the receivers? I give it to the Bengals.
I meant overall, including the tight ends.
Mm-hmm. Well, then are we including running backs? Because Joe Mixon against whoever on the Bills, that's Joe Mixon's W.
Yeah, I think it's a fair comparison. It's a fair shout. I mean, if you're talking about a complete team, like the complete team effort, like offense versus offense is one thing that's totally fine. But I worry for Joe Burrow when he's got to face that Buffalo defensive line, that Ed Oliver, that Gregory Rousseau, Von Miller, Carlos Basham, that set scares me. Cincinnati's got a very good defensive line and defensive unit too, but they don't scare me as much as Buffalo's does. Buffalo's is frightening.
Right.
If you can get the ball past like the first 9 guys and go to the secondary, fine. But you're not going to do that every single time. Like that's
But also to be fair, that Buffalo Bills secondary is when healthy Tre'Davious White, Micah Hyde, and Jordan Poyer. So that's not
just take the punt on first down.
Hey, there's a good punting situation, kicking situations.
Great situations for that. Sure.
Kicking situation, I'm giving it to the Bengals. That's all
due respect to the Bills. Evan McPherson, absolutely. Tyler Bass is good though, but Evan McPherson, absolutely.
All due respect to Big Kick Bass, but
all hail Big Kick Bass.
Evan McPherson is the guy. That kid is the Joe Burrow of kickers in terms of confidence. Yes, it's just amazing. So before we go to the Rams here, real quick, Rick. Tweet from, I'm assuming it's a tweet from Adam Schefter. Zach Wilson, Jets quarterback, has meniscus tear in addition to bone bruise and will undergo arthroscopic surgery. He is projected to be out 2 to 4 weeks. So, ironic since we mentioned Zach Wilson earlier.
So the Jets probably don't have him for week 1 or week 2, I would say at this point, because meniscus is tough. Meniscus is a really tough one to have to deal with. Exercise. It could be worse. It could be a lot worse. And I think, thankfully it's not that, but it's a rough recovery from that, I think. So Mike White, week 1, let's go.
Yeah. Mike White, week 1, who else we could see, but it's definitely good to see that Zach Wilson is not going to be out for a long-term basis, to say the very least. That is something very, very good for Jets fans, because you'll get him for hopefully a majority of the season at this point, because 2 to 4 weeks, you end of the preseason, first couple weeks of the regular season, you got to reevaluate, of course, but there's some good news there. And it's also like meniscus can be tricky, but for the most part, compared to the other knee injuries, Like this is a pretty good situation. As weird as it is to say, it's a
If
pretty
I
good situation.
so basically, if I don't have Zach Wilson for the next 4 weeks, let's say, if I don't have him until week 3 of the regular season, that's Cincinnati coming to New York. So he misses Baltimore, which means he misses Calais Campbell and he misses that defense.
Right.
And then he misses Cleveland, which offense would be damned. That Cleveland defense with Myles Garrett and Owusu Karamoa, who we talked about in one of our earlier weeks. I'm okay with Zach Wilson missing those series and then having him come back. I mean, I'm not really okay with him coming back against Cincinnati, but the alternative is Pittsburgh, and TJ Watt's going to swallow him whole. So,
you're right.
So yeah,
maybe let him sit out the reevaluating. Maybe give him 2 more weeks of rest.
Have him come back against Miami in week 5. That's fine.
Yeah. The Miami offense might be good, but that Miami defense on paper, like there are a lot of questions about it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's fine. Let him sit.
So we got that. So back to the contenders here real quick. In your opinion, Rick, when it comes to the Rams, who is their top contender that they have to worry about?
So I think my picks aside, because based upon what I would say, oh, it's Detroit and Arizona and Washington. Like, let's be honest here. I think in reality, you're looking at 2 teams. I think you're looking at Tampa and you're looking at Green Bay. And I think it's primarily because of the established veterans that are there, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. Brady more so. I give Tampa Bay a slight edge over Green Bay, but I feel like those 2 teams are definitely the teams that, when you compare against the Rams, maybe they don't have the youth and the tenacity, but they have the establishment and the traditional, we're going to make the playoffs and we're going to be a thorn in your side sort of mindset. I think Tampa's a team that reloads, especially with Tom Brady there. They just reloaded constantly. I like their offensive set. I like what they've done on defense as well with this team. I think that they're a strong unit, and I think that that's going to really help them. And look, Green Bay, even though Green Bay doesn't have that wide receiving room that we talked about, you're still talking about Aaron Rodgers. You're still talking about a very strong defensive unit. I mean, I went back to our North Division room and I watched some Rashawn Gary tape, and I got to tell you, he's intense. He's really, really good. So I think those are your 2 top contenders. I could maybe see a team out of, like, depending on who it is, I could see a team that surprises this year, maybe making a run at the Rams. Like, if Justin's Eagles somehow, some way, in whatever universe of the Neverending Story or Fern Gully or whatever animated film you want to compare it to, they win the division over my clearly better than them Commanders. I think they could have a shot, because I do like the Eagles wide receiving unit a lot against that Rams secondary. But I think you're looking at teams that, like, the NFC to me is going to be boring. It's going to be Tampa Bay or Green Bay. Like, it's just going to be that way for the next few years, as long as Brady and Rodgers are still playing. I think that's how it is. There are teams, like I said, that could surprise you. Like, New Orleans could be a surprise based upon how good their defense is, or how good it looks on paper with Tyrann Mathieu there and Marcus May there as well. But I think you're looking at Green Bay and Tampa Bay as your top 2 challengers, and I think that's the way it's going to be for the next few years.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I think those are the top 2 by far. I think even, compared to last season, what the strength of the NFC West was, because we have an unknown right now when it comes to both the 49ers and the Cardinals, especially with the 49ers situation. I don't think you can include an NFC West team in the preseason to really be a true contender towards the Rams in that regard. Actually, this is something I saw yesterday. So I follow a good amount of sports pages, and there's one sports page I follow that does a yearly NFL ranking system.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it team by team on a daily basis. They have the Cardinals ranked as the 21st team in the league.
Ooh.
And they are projecting them to finish just 7-10.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it made me think about that. Because
so write down those names and give me that address. I'm going to send them all Cole Strange jerseys at the end of the season. That'd be great. Thanks.
Like, it's really interesting, to say the very least, that what was the NFC West last season is this season. You just don't have the same faith in it. Like, and kind of nor should you, because the Rams demolished the Cardinals in that playoff game last year. And I think Cliff Kingsbury and that crew has a lot to prove. And then, like I said, Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, we got to see what Trey Lance is in the regular season. It's nice to see him play well in the preseason, but we got to see what he can do in the regular season at the end of the day. So that just about does it. And like I said, I'm essentially with you for the most part. I think those are the top two teams. I guess. Like
throw Chicago in there. Why not? some so-called expert did, so why not us, right?
Rick versus Adam Rank, future WrestleMania match in the making.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Funny enough, the Roquan Smith wants to be traded, so you have that.
There you go.
Not a small job there, Ryan Poles. I was actually you already kind of tackled the NFC East, but can any NFC East team realistically challenge the Rams? I don't know.
I don't believe so. I mean, I think the NFC East to me this year is going to be like a mid-major conference in the NCAA. It's nice you made the tournament, but step out of the way.
That's a good comparison.
There's no St. Peter's Peacocks in the NFL this year. It's just not going to happen. Not going to be that way.
Yeah.
Watch the 7 seed make it to the Super Bowl in one of these conferences. By the way,
of course. Said that. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. The 7 seed. The 7 seed is going to make the Super. It's going to be a 7 seed versus 7 seed.
Ew. Although I'm trying to think of who my 7 seeds are. That's a bad one. That's a bad Super Bowl.
Well, hold that thought. That's for next week.
Oh no! I know. I just like I was like okay.
So we'll hear what Rick's worst case scenario Super Bowl is next week for that, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, that just about wraps up any of the NFL talk. Well, not any of the NFL talk. We may have some NFL talk here in a bit, but before we get to the main event of the show, ladies and gentlemen, we have a little bit of a preamble to that. I have to sound off on something.
The semi-main event, yes.
Yes. This is the semi-main event. That's not going to be as good as the main event, but I'm going to at least try. As everyone knows, on a weekly basis, Rick gives us his best topics of the week that he's going to rant about, and he absolutely just destroys it every single time. There was a topic this week that I just wanted to confirm, and per usual, I don't know what the topics are that Rick is going to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. But what I do know is one he's not going to talk about. And I asked beforehand, are you going to touch upon this? Same with the Antonio Brown thing, actually. I asked him if he was going to touch upon this in his rants. When he said no to both, I had to make sure we were getting it on the show. And this is one of them. DeJounte Murray got me so mad this week. What are you doing, DeJounte Murray? So, as anyone that's been an NBA fan, now we're veering towards another sport here, ladies and gentlemen. So, please, stay put. I know we mainly talk NFL, but it's worth it because we know something about other sports. So, if you've been any basketball fans or people that just go on social media, you've probably seen clips of basketball players who have been playing in like pro-am leagues, rec leagues, etc. So far this summer, and I think it's an amazing thing. To say the very least. I think, funny enough, it was DeJounte Murray himself that implored like his fellow NBA players, like, hey, go out here and go play in some of these games because some of these kids just can't afford to see us at the end of the day. I think that was an amazing message. And for that, DeJounte Murray, I truly do applaud you. And I know how much it means to those kids because at one point he and a lot of his peers were kids themselves that you can't always go to see an NBA game. I've only been to a handful of NBA games in my life. Two of them actually tied to Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade's final game at MSG and then Dwayne Wade's final career game at the Barclays Center. Aside from that, I can't think of any other NBA game. Well, I've been to one other NBA game before that, actually. So, regardless, it's NBA games. Not everyone can afford to go to it, especially if you are a Lakers fan or a Clippers fan or a New York Knicks fan or a Brooklyn Nets fan. Like the teams in the big markets where even the cheap seats, quote unquote, are more than other. Like it's difficult. I think that was an amazing message for him to say. But then you follow it up with that punk BS between him and Paolo Banchero. So there was a game that had DeJounte Murray on one side and Paolo Banchero on the other. And there was a very viral clip from that game where DeJounte Murray fakes out Paolo, lobs up the pass to himself off the backboard, and then finishes it. Amazing play. All right? If it had stopped there, we'd be cool. Or if DeJounte wanted to talk a little bit of smack after, that's fine. But then he goes on social media after and then shares an Instagram him essentially, jawing and calling out Paolo Banchero that he's being too full of himself because he's the number one overall pick and this and that and da-da-da-da-da. And I think he even posted another story within the last day or two still referring to Paolo directly. Why? That is the most needless, pointless, stupidest thing in the world, if you ask me. I will say this. One of my friends actually commented about saying that for the first time in a while, I'm going to want to watch an Atlanta Hawks and Orlando Magic game. And for all intents and purposes, actually, you know what? Fair point. This might actually be a good thing for the NBA for like those specific games. But why are you going at the rookie for, truthfully, let's be real here, no reason? I understand if Paolo was if he was actually being braggadocious and bragging and just talking smack and puffing out his chest and all that ever since he got drafted, I would understand it. I've seen no such thing of Paolo doing that. I just know that the kid is trying to work himself into the best possible shape to get ready for the season, because this is a college kid who's gone to 1 year. And Charles Barkley has spoken about this, how he feels sometimes the kids are already out of college after just 1 year because it's an 82-game season. He's trying to get ready for the NBA season. And in part of doing that, he's out here playing some of these games. And against DeJounte Murray in particular, apparently, like, we really shouldn't keep stats, but like people keep like the stats of it. Apparently Paolo also had a good game in that one against DeJounte. And for DeJounte Murray to call him out saying that you gotta be humble and this and that and that, I'm sorry, DeJounte Murray, who the hell are you to tell him this? Like, I saw people trying to defend this as, oh, DeJounte Murray has he has a name in this game. I'm like, he does? That's news to me. If this was LeBron James, if this was Giannis, if this was Kevin Durant, we're like, okay, young gun, you're doing a little bit too much. Let me remind you of your place in this NBA world. Cool. Who the hell is DeJounte Murray? And this is a guy who's been a DeJounte Murray fan ever since he was drafted. I love DeJounte. I love the fact he was an all-star this year. I love the fact that he's been named to the All-NBA defensive team, which weirdly enough, he led the league in steals, but didn't make an All-NBA defensive team this past year. A complete tragedy, because it doesn't make any sense. But this podcast is going to go on for another hour and a half if we have to talk about how the sports voting for any accolades works in general. But so I'm a DeJounte Murray guy, but seeing this to me just made no sense whatsoever. Why are you going at this kid? What did he say something personal to you that got you upset? Like, what is him having the number 1 overall pick? I just don't understand. And then, because in part, at the end of the day, we don't know what Palos allegedly said or did, but he doesn't necessarily come off to me as arrogant, first off. And second off, two sides of this. Number one, he's the number 1 overall pick in his draft. I think you deserve to have a little bit of confidence going into this, because as we talk about this, Rick, you need to have confidence in the world of professional sports. You'll be eaten alive if you are. Case in point, as a Miami Heat fan, Duncan Robinson, he's admitted himself he's had confidence issues, and he has a little bit of imposter syndrome when it comes to the fact that he's made it to this point in his NBA career. Like, it shows that he's human, but we've also seen it in some of the bad games he has and how Miami was sitting him throughout a majority of their playoff run last year. You need to have confidence to make it in the sport, and especially being the number 1 overall pick, that's all he has right now. That's all he has. So he should be confident in his ability going at, like, what is going to be now his fellow peers, or what now his fellow peers. And for DeJounte Murray to call this out, it was just weird and stupid to me. It could have just been a personal conversation if it really bothered you that much. But the fact that, like, people defending it's like, oh, DeJounte Murray has a name in this game. I'm sorry. A one-time All-Star, you don't get a right to talk smack to a number 1 overall pick. You just don't. Like, this kid accomplished more than you in college. I don't care what the individual accolades are in college. The fact that he became the 1st overall pick to me means he accomplished way more than you. And yeah, you're, like, again, one-time All-Star. Like, people really acting like DeJounte Murray is someone who deserves to say this. This was, like, to me, Mike James saying something about Stephen Curry. It's like, you're Mike James, and that's one of the top 2 or 3 greatest point guards of all time. Look, DeJounte Murray, you're a really good player. This kid just got drafted number 1 overall. If it really bothered you that much, keep it I don't understand everything with these athletes. It needs to be on social media. Kevin Durant, I understand. Kevin Durant just lives on social media at this point. But keep it personal. Make it make sense. It was the dumbest thing I've seen so far this NBA offseason. And it sucks because this was days after DeJounte's amazing message of, let's go out here, let's play in some of these games so these kids can see us, and let's interact with these kids. It's such an amazing message that I was all behind, and you kind of ruined it for yourself right now. And people are starting to go against DeJounte Murray, by the way, because a lot of people already aren't a fan of Trae Young, and now it's DeJounte Murray and Trae Young together in Atlanta. A lot of people have been making comments about that backcourt duo right now, and it has nothing to do with their play. It's wild to me. I just had to point this out because, to me, it was the dumbest thing I've seen this offseason, the most unnecessary thing I've seen this offseason. And at the end of the day, DeJounte Murray, I'm sorry, you don't have a right to – you do not have enough clout. How dare I say someone doesn't have enough clout? But yes, I'm saying it. He doesn't have enough clout. Like, you're not a big enough deal to bring this up, and it should really matter the way it did for a while. You're a one-time All-Star. You're a one-time All-Star going at a former the most recent number 1 overall pick. Come on, man. So that's my 2 cents about it. That's what I had to say. It was a little bit disjointed and stuff, but yeah, I just, like, I saw it and I just, like, it just got me mad because it's like, why? It's unnecessary.
Right.
Speaking of necessary, though, I was, like I said, I was the appetizer. I'm a bit of a novice here in the rant game, ladies and gentlemen. Let's turn it over to the pro of this. From a novice to a savant. Rick, the rant podium is yours.
I will say though, you did a very good job with it. I must say, and when you mentioned the Trae Young talk, it reminded me of the side talk videos on YouTube. If you've seen those, where especially the ones that are like about Trae Young and the Knicks. So I'm sure they'll DeJounte Murray. I'm sure they'll make one more for him. Listen, there were a lot of stories this week that really made me very, very angry and very, very just confused. So I made a pretty substantive list, and I cut it down to 5, and I hope everyone's okay with that. I cut it down to 5. Adam Rank did not make the list, although he and I are going to have words at some point in the future. I open invitation, Adam Rank, come on this podcast so I can tell you why your Bears take is terrible, but for a later day. Number 5, I'm not sure if you saw this with the Cleveland Guardians in Major League Baseball. Obviously, one of the gimmicks that the teams have is they have races, like mascot races. Like the Washington, the President's Race. In Brooklyn, where I work, we have the Nathan's Hot Dog Race with ketchup, mustard, and relish. Milwaukee has it too. Cleveland has the Sugardale Hot Dog Races, and in 2022 they had 50 of them because there was a game that was rained out. And in all 50 of those races that have happened so far, it was an even split between ketchup and onion, which means that mustard, the third hot dog, won 0 races out of 50. So the Guardians earlier, I think last week, basically put out a press release saying, we've announced the following roster moves. We have optioned Mustard to High A Lake County, not making a corresponding move, so he can get his head right and win these races and stop fighting with people, et cetera, et cetera. That's hilarious. And one of the things too that this just came out yesterday, Mustard did a Antonio Brown meme tweet.
Oh no.
Yes, which my biggest regret doesn't involve getting called down to single A or allowing Andre Knott to hit me with a shovel during a race or throwing hot dogs at the UPS driver or doesn't involve taking my bun off and doing a victory lap around Progressive Field while throwing up the deuces. My biggest regret is that I never get to see me, Mustard, run a race live. Sure, I can watch the race afterwards, but I can't imagine that it was for all you all to see something like that, like watching the Beatles perform Progressive Field.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, it's a rant in a way because it's dumb, but it's also kind of hilarious because it's a mascot who was terrible and got sent down. So here's my thing. You know that there's an intern running in that mascot race, mascot suit. Just pick an intern that can run. Stop putting the graphics designer who never ran a day in his life or in the mustard contest. It's ridiculous. Come on. It adds to the kayfabe nature of it, but I mean it's bad. But that's number 5. Number 4, I'm gonna jump into the NBA. Royce O'Neal.
Oh,
did you see Royce O'Neal at all?
I did not.
So Royce O'Neal, it's on Twitter. He was playing 1-on-1 against his mother. Very nice, mother-son bonding things. And his mom's playing defense, and she's blocking down low in the paint, and he is backing up, spins around, does a crossover move, breaks his mom's ankles, and she's on the floor on the court just prostrate, splaying. Royce O'Neal, that part's bad enough. Royce O'Neal stands there for about 10 seconds, looking, waiting, and proceeds to make the layup anyway. Don't care about you, Mom. You're on defense.
I'm
You're
seeing
terrible.
this right now.
Yeah, you're terrible. I'll make the layup anyway. First of all, you held the ball for 10 seconds in the paint. That's traveling and a 3-second violation. Number 1. Number 2, that's your freaking mother. Help the woman up and then make the layup. Don't make the layup out of, adding more pain to insult. Oh, I can think of somebody who will not be getting a Mother's Day card, and that's Royce O'Neal's mother. Or if it is, it'll be a meme of just the crossover that broke her damn ankles. Ridiculousness.
An NFT of that.
An NFT or Bitcoin. Be a Royce coin. That's what we're going to call it from now on. Terrible. Number 3. Oh my God. Number 3. I want to take three companies that I've never heard of and put them all in the same spot.
Okay.
So Continuum is a company that's a startup, and their job is that they help other companies with the process of laying off employees. So it is your job to help other companies fire other people from their jobs. It reminds me of Up in the Air, where Clooney was sent all over the country to like fire airline executives or whatever. How is that a job in this day and age that we're allowed to fire people in this regard? So that's part A. Part B is Rivian. I'm not sure if you heard of them. Rivian's a company that does like automotive technology. They're a U.S. startup with like Amazon and Ford as their investors. I've never heard of you. So how do you lose $1.5 billion in 3 months? How have you reported that as your losses? And they say, it's nothing. We've got $15.5 billion in the coffer, so we're okay. How do you lose $2 billion in 3 months, anyways? That's a plus minus problem. That like, why is this the case? Rivian, go back to the drawing board. That's part 3B. Part 3C is the New Hampshire distillery Tamworth Distilling. They are a maker of craft spirits, and they decided to tackle a problem that was happening in New Hampshire. Well, the problem in New Hampshire is that they have this invasive species of green crab that gets into the supply and kind of ruins, the nature of different things in that side. So what Tamworth Distilling did was they said, let's take these green crabs, let's kill them, and let's turn them into a crab-flavored whiskey. I don't know if anybody in their entire mindset has ever said, you know what I want to do? I want to compare Scotland with the Old Bay of Maryland. Give me crabs and whiskey together at the same time. According to them, the flavor has a body of maple and vanilla oak with hints of clove, cinnamon, and allspice. To me, that is a no, 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 and no. It's one of those things where it's like, once you know what it's made of, you could never actually have it. If you loved it before, just don't ask what it's made of. Because it's like hot dogs. Don't ask what they're made of. You never want to know what they're made of. You never want to have another one ever again because of that. Ridiculous. Crab whiskey? Come on. Number 2, since we're on number 2 now. Rodolfo Castro, the Pittsburgh Pirates second baseman, 23-year-old, who played against the Arizona Diamondbacks, was called back up, sliding into third base on a single by his teammate. As he's sliding into third base, his cell phone falls out of his pocket. At what point are we playing with cell phones in our pockets now? Like, you are a professional baseball player. You should know that is not something you put in your back pocket while you're sliding. Because God forbid he tried to slide feet first instead of head first, he would have crushed the phone. And then what would have happened? You would have like glass in your baseball pants and pixels and all that sort of stuff. And the MLB is now investigating why he had it in his pocket. How about this? He's a moron. How about that? Maybe that's the reason why he had it in his pocket, because he's an idiot who forgot to take it out of his pocket, when he was running the bases. There's no other reason for that. Like, I get it. Electronic devices on the field or in the dugout are illegal. The guy's a moron. That's all you need to know. He's just a moron. Which brings me to number 1. Now, when you mentioned to me, was I going to talk about Antonio Brown? I said no. However, this topic can kind of run into that regard. Have you noticed this in the past few months that Coca-Cola has tried out different flavors for their soft drinks? So they started off with something called, I think it was like Starlight or Starfire or whatever, and it was supposed to be like, like a cosmic flavor of Coca-Cola. And then they went with something called Pixels, which they said was supposed to give you the taste of like what Pixels actually taste like, which is weird in of itself. The third combination was actually, it was normal. It was watermelon and strawberry. It was like a marshmallow, the DJ mix. They have a new flavor, and it's being released in 2 days. It's called Coca-Cola Dream World. Now, Coca-Cola Dream World, the tagline is Technicolor tastes and surrealism of the subconsciousness by inviting drinkers to dream with open eyes. Somebody reviewed this, and they said it tastes like mango. Now, 2 things here. Number 1, so clearly Antonio Brown was on this his entire lower week because he had a case of this at his home. Number 2, Pepsi has a mango flavored drink. They just call it Pepsi Mango. Why is that not good enough? Why do you got to come up with stupid, random gimmick marketing names? Coca-Cola Dream World. It tastes like mango dreams. Oh my God. Like, what fever dream are we living in now where we have to give random names to flavors that just are simple? Mango is a simple flavor. Just call it Coke Mango. Like, you had orange vanilla Coke. You didn't name that, Coca-Cola Taxi Cab or whatever it is. It was Coke Mango. Call it Coke Mango. Like, I don't understand marketing anymore. And I'm in marketing. I don't get it. Why is this a thing? Why is this a thing that we have to deal with? Why? I cannot wait for the fifth one, Coca-Cola Gunge. It's a slime flavored Coca-Cola of all things. Like, really? Like, please, dear God, take me off of this world and put me in Coca-Cola Dream World, where apparently I can taste the subconsciousness. Like, oh yeah, Karl Marx and Oscar Wilde and James Joyce really wanted you to taste subconsciousness of all people. Like, oh my God, we have come so far as a society, and we've also regressed so poorly in some ways that it's just ridiculous to me that we have manners in which this is a problem. So I hope that next week there's less crazy news. I doubt there will be, because then I won't have anything to rant on, and that's just a disaster. And as we all know, and as even Sienna knows, Duncan still sucks. and Duncan still sucks. Kevin Durant's a moron, and Adam Rank, your Bears take is terrible.
Yeah, that's oh man. I was gonna say I was waiting to the end to make the joke because I don't want to interrupt it, but I don't want to taste my subconscious. That does not sound like something I want to taste.
No, no. Why would I want that? Why would I want pixels or I don't know, like fireworks or subconsciousness? Why would I want that? Like, I'm better off just dumping a Coca-Cola into a potted plant and drinking that instead. Like, it's just, why is this a thing?
Rick, out of curiosity, I don't know if you have an opinion on this because I never asked. Do you indulge in the whole Coke versus Pepsi thing? Like, do you prefer one over the other? Have you ever, or is it like whichever's available, just give it?
So to kind of my life mirrored Family Guy in this regard. So I grew up in an RC household.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Because my dad was very big into Royal Crown, and we were too. He went to Pepsi for a bit, and then he started buying generic brand name like supermarket cola, which honestly is better, I think, than Pepsi or Coke. If I had to pick one or the other, I pick Pepsi, because while it's a flatter and it's not as acidic, I will say this: the cherry and the vanilla of the Pepsis were just better than the cherry and the vanilla in the Coke. Vanilla Coke was phenomenal, but vanilla Pepsi I think is just better because it's better. The one thing that I will say, Pepsi, they have tried the same thing called Nitro Pepsi, Nitro Cola, where they're trying to do like nitrogen, but basically all that. Well, I mean, because Nitro cold brew, it makes sense for coffee, right? So all that happens is that you open the can and there's a big can sound, and then it's flat. So it's like the initial bubbles and the initial foam is like what makes the nitrogen, but the rest of it's flat. So that's a miss. I think they were trying to do it like Coca-Cola coffee, which I will say I will drink that for my morning breakfast because that is phenomenal. I think that's maybe the best combination of Coke and coffee that I've seen, other than on Breaking Bad. But that's a whole other conversation for a whole other day. So.
Also a different kind of Coke.
Yes. Very different type of Coke.
Oh boy.
Different.
Oh man. Yeah. Oh, that is absolutely wild. Well, better Coke and coffee and tiramisu Lego waffles compared to an alcoholic drink made of crabs.
Did you say Lego waffles?
My bad. I just meant to say tiramisu waffles.
I mean, tiramisu Lego waffles would be amazing, but they would be terrible to eat.
Probably. But wow, that was the rant podium this week. A special 5 finalists finish right there for it. Like Rick said, he had a lot of options to go after, and he went at them. There is no better way to continue this episode. Of course, as always, we end the episode off on that. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. As Rick's camera freezes up, he's back. But we had a lot of fun. Like I said, it's a little bit slow till we get to the start of regular season, but we still have, I think, another 2 weeks of preseason. We are going to give you guys our playoff predictions based off of the division standings. Of course, for 2 months we did that. Had a little bit of a break here, in part because of time off and all that. But now assuming all three of us are here next week, we will give you guys our playoff teams for the 2022 NFL season in the AFC and the NFC. We're going to have a ball on that. We're going to have fun. We're going to bring back Justin's trivia. Sandoval is going to be back to lord over us in all his glory. It's just going to be a great time next week because, as we always do on a weekly basis on Sports Agents the Chaos podcast, we love to have fun. We love to talk football, and as you can tell by our ranting, we love to cause just a little bit of chaos. Thank you all so much for joining us on this week's episode, and we will see you guys next week.